Senator Rennick made an outstanding speech in the Senate. The two issues of concern that he raised related in the first instance to capitalism and in the second instance the government granting indemnity to pharmaceutical companies with no accountability for the deaths for which vaccinations were responsible. Senator Gerard Rennick joins me. Gerard, thank you for your time. I suppose you'll be further expelled if you talk about the fact that you've lost your third spot on the Senate ticket. Who have you upset? Come on, tell us.
I'm not allowed to talk about that, Alan, and I am more than happy. You know me, I'm happy to talk about the issues, but I've got to play ball because I do want to stay.
I understand that. You're immensely well credentialed. Just because now you've entered the Parliament, now you leave the Parliament. Why did you seek to enter Parliament?
Because I wanted to make sure that our children got the same opportunities that our forefathers gave to us. I think the story of Australia is an incredible one. I think it's one we should be very proud of, and I want to make sure we uphold those traditions that has made this country so great.
I agree, it's just amazing. I don't understand who the wood ducks are that go through all these pre-selections, but anyway, we'll go into the detail. But when you listen to this bloke speak, you just shake your head and wonder what the hell's going on. In that speech, you began with a bit of a detour, because I'll come to this vaccination issue in a moment, in relation to capitalism. And you said you don't believe in the free market, and nor do I. You called it an economic world in which people risk their own capital. That's real capitalism. You said you'd spent your whole lifetime working in finance and you'd never seen freedom as a line item on the balance sheet. You made the point there are only two outcomes of the free market. You either make money or you lose it. And Senator Rennick made the very good point that real capitalists out there, real capitalists are, quote, these are his words, the Australians who get out of bed every day and put their noses to the grindstone. He said, I don't care whether you're a teacher, a nurse, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a scientist or a small business person, if you're out there busting your gut, you're one who is risking your capital. He said, I've always tended to think of that in terms of economics, but unfortunately, because of this contrived crisis that was brought about by state governments, that's this coronavirus thing, who lost the plot, we've now found that people have had to risk their health because of a government mandate. He said this is totally wrong. I think we need to have a good look at it. So, Gerard, just go back to this capitalism bit, because you're so right there, and we see this in relation to Qantas, for example, today. When will we ever get the balance right here?
Well, we'll get the balance right again, Alan, when we get greater democracy within our corporations again. Where our corporations have gone wrong over the last 30 years is that they've been taken over by these fund managers. Now, superannuation was the worst thing that ever happened to the economy in this country. And I often say this in my stump speech. I say to people, what was the outcome of the referendum in 1992? And Paul Keating said he was going to take 12% of your income by 2025 and give it to someone you've never met, and you may or may not get it back when you're 67. And, of course, there was no referendum. And likewise, then I say to the people that I'm speaking to, when was the last time you actually voted, if you were in a retail fund or an industry fund, doesn't matter, for the people who run those boards? And, of course, no one gets the vote for those people. They're selected, not elected. And, of course, what we've seen now is we've seen a takeover of our corporate boardrooms, not just the classroom or the bedroom, with this woke ideology. And now today our companies are driven by ideology and not productivity. So if we want to get back to having companies that are actually interested in driving productivity, which is where our true freedoms come from. I mean, I've always believed that our affluence, our freedoms is the child of affluence, which is the child of productivity. And this is why I back those people who get out of bed and work every day, because they're the ones who are being productive, not the paper shufflers in the bureaucracy or the gamblers of other people's capital in the fund managers. So we've got to go back to empowering the individual and their families, and disempowering these unelected bureaucracies, whether they're the RBA shuffling money, changing the price of money on the first Tuesday of every month. That's communism. That's the definition of communism, when you change the price of money. Yet we condone that in this country. That's hardly a free market thing. But we have to go back rewarding those people for their efforts. And a true market, the market I believe in, is one that has downside as well as upside risk, and whereby you have the risk-reward paradigm. Unfortunately, the managers of our capital today have no downside risk. They pass the buck back to either shareholders, while the executives take their multi-million-dollar bonuses, as we're seeing with Qantas, or we see these wealth fund managers who now control $3 trillion in capital. And let me tell you, if you control that much capital, you control industry. And if you control industry, you control the media, because they rely on industry for their advertising.